Okay, so this video is going to be for Lesson 4. Lesson 4 is on PSA 1 or inspection. It's called Part 2 though. If you want, you could write this at the top of the page, but what we are doing is factoring. We've already factored by GCF. Yesterday or the last lesson, which was Lesson 3, we factored by what I call PSA 1, but remember that's informal. What's the formal terminology for PSA 1? Inspection. It's factoring by inspection. Okay, when you factor by inspection or PSA 1, you're always going to be dealing with a trinomial. So you see a trinomial and it says to factor, it's either going to be a PSA 1 or a PSA 2 question. The trinomials are always going to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Always in that form. What is your A value if it's an inspection question? It'll be 1, right? If it's PSA 1, your A value will always be 1. After we finish this lesson, we're going to do the PSA 2 lesson, and what's going to happen is we won't be able to get this to a 1. And if you can't get it to a 1, it's going to be a PSA 2. Okay, so why is there two parts to PSA 1 when it seemed pretty self-explanatory? Let's look at class example 1, and let's look at class example 1A. So we're going to set up our chart just like we did yesterday. So product, sum, and answer. My product is negative 12, and my sum is negative 1. We need to find the answer. So just to kind of review this, remember that you're always taking whatever the product is, negative 12, and you're saying, what are all the numbers that multiply to negative 12? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down, so yesterday we would have said, okay, 1 and 12. Remember I said leave some space. 2 and 6, leave some space. And then what's the last two? 3 and 4. I'm going to write those numbers again. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. As it stands, 1 times 12 is 12. How do you get it to be a negative 12? What would you do? One of these two numbers has to be negative. So the reason why there's a part 2 is because in part 1, this number that we were finding the product of, it was always a positive number, right? This is a negative number. So you say to yourself, you write all your numbers down. In order to get a negative 12, it is either going to be negative 1 times 12, or it's going to be 1 times negative 12. It's either going to be negative 2 times 6 or 2 times negative 6. Negative 3 times 4 will give you negative 12, or 3 times negative 4. So that's what happens when this C value, your constant, is a negative number. Then by inspection, actually I'll go through this just because it's the video. I'll go through this quickly. We won't do this, we'll only do this one time. Negative 1 plus 12 is 11. 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. We are going to get a 1 here and a negative 1 here. And then you say you're able to inspect it, and you say, okay, by inspection, what's the answer? We're looking for what gives me the sum of negative 1, which would be a 3 and a negative 4. Set up your two brackets. Put an x at the beginning of each bracket. 1x gets a plus 3. 1x gets a minus 4. And you would be done. Let's do B. Okay, so again, my C value is a negative number. So set up your chart if you want to. When you get really good, remember you're not even doing the charts. PSA, you're looking for a product of negative 18 and a sum of 3. So 1 and 18, I'm not even going to write 1 and 18. 2 and 9, 18 divided by 3 is 6. And the reason why I write them twice is because I say to myself, I need to get a negative 18. And then by inspection, you should be able to just look at those numbers. Imagine a little plus in between each of these. Which one is going to sum to 3? So Aeneas, which of these numbers would sum to 3? Negative 3 and plus 6, or negative 3 and 6. Okay, so let's set that up. 2 brackets, x at the beginning, 1x gets a minus 3, 1x gets a plus 6. Doesn't matter which is which. You get your 2 marks, 1 mark per factor. This one's an easy one, so let's do this one. PSA, and then I'll get you guys to give me the answer. So we're looking for a product of negative 8, a sum of negative 7, write down your answer, then write down your factors. I'm just going to pick 2 people. When I pick you, you don't have to give me this answer. Just read me one of your factors, and I'll see if you're right. Raiden, do you have one of them done? What is it? A minus 8 is correct. And Julie? Yep. Yes. Yep. So this would be one factor. This would be one factor. So that's why I'd make it out of 2 marks, 1 mark per factor. The next class example, one of them will get 3 factors, and I'll show you what it would look like. Danny, do you have this one done? A plus 1. So the 2 numbers that added or summed to negative 7 were this guy here. 1 plus negative 8 would have been the negative 7, so a 1 and a negative 8. Okay, I'm not going to bother doing A because A is the same as this. Let's do B. We're going to do B and we're going to do D. What do you notice about B, Carly? That's right. If we're going to do PSA 1, we have to get a 1 in front of here. So you say this has to be a GCF question. It starts as a GCF. GCF is equal to 2. Put a division bar underneath each term. You're factoring out a 2. So then you would say, okay, what's left in the bracket? 2 divided by 2 is 1t squared minus 14 divided by 2 is 7t plus 20 divided by 2 is 10. You guys, could you do me a favor? I know this is a little nitpicky, but when you write your t's, can you just get into the habit of doing that? Do you know why? Yeah, yeah. So that it just doesn't look like a plus. Then we know our answer. Bring down that 2, so don't forget that. Set up your 2 brackets, and then if you want, you could do your chart. This will be an easy one by inspection. So it gives us a product of 10 and a sum of negative 7. So I'm not going to write down 1 and 10. So 2 and 5. And remember, so this is what we would have done yesterday. This was part 1. In order to get a positive 10, it's 2 times 5, or Emerson, it would be what? To get a positive 10, like 2 times 5 would give you 10. That's right. So both of these would give you 10. Which one gives you the negative 7? This guy here. Negative 2 plus negative 5 would give you negative 7. So the answer is negative 2, negative 5. It would be t minus 2, t minus 5. You would box that in. You have the answer. This would be a 3-mark question. Okay, so 1 mark for this factor, 1 mark for that factor, and 1 mark for that factor. There are 3 factors. Your answer has 3 factors. 2 is a factor, t minus 2 is a factor, t minus 5 is a factor. Look at D. Write down the GCF of D. Oh, and what are you writing? It's not just 4. Yes. So remember that the trinomial has to start with an x squared. It's got to be an x squared, an x, and then a constant. So it would be 4x squared because x is common to each term. And then remember, you take out the x with the lowest power. Okay, put that GCF in front of a bracket. Put your answer in a bracket. 4 divided by 4, there is our 1. Quotient law dictates that you subtract the expression, or exponents. So 4 minus 2 is 2. Minus 16 divided by 4 is 3x. Minus the x squareds will cancel, and you'll get 5. Did I make a mistake? Where's my mistake? Do you guys see it? Yes. 16 divided by 4 is 4x. Okay, what I always do is, if it's a PSA 1 question, I put that guy because I don't want to forget it. And then you're going to do product of -5, sum of -4. This one's always nice because there's only 2 numbers that multiply to 5, right? It's either 1 and 5, and we got to get one of those negative. Jaden, what would be the answer? Yeah, 1 and -5. So x plus 1 is one of your factors. X minus 5 is the second. Does it matter if you flipped these two? No, you could put x minus 5, x plus 1 first and second, because when you expand it, you are going to get this after you expand and simplify. That is it for this lesson. So I'm going to give you some to practice, and that's all we're really practicing is that negative as a constant. So you can go to your homework. Do number 2. You'll find you're doing these really fast. So do all of number 2. I'm only going to pick 4 from these. So circle A, D, J, and I. A, D, those 4. For number 3, or sorry, for number 4, I want you to do all of these. This is going to be the last question. Star this. Why is this one starred? Yeah, this is your GCF question. So before you even start, let's just do the GCF of each one to make sure that you got the GCF correct. I'll just pick 6 different people for the GCF. Tristan, what's the GCF of A? It is 2. So 3 division bars, put a 2 underneath each one. Akil, what is the GCF of B? 4 is correct. Tulu, what is the GCF of C? 5 is correct. Carly, what is the GCF of D? It's not 2. -2. So you guys, I want to show you why it would be -2. You always want to have a 1x squared, a positive 1x squared. So if this is a negative, if it starts with a negative, you factor out that negative. So let's actually set this one up. So the -2 goes in front of the bracket. And then -2 divided by -2 gives you 1. There's our 1. And then over here, you could type this right into your calculator, right? Sometimes students get confused with this. It's 2 divided by -2. If you typed that into your calculator, what would come out? -1. See? 2 divided by -2, -1. So that would be -1a. Would this be a plus or a minus? minus. Yep, positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. 220 divided by 2 is 110. And then I'm just going to set this up and put an A at the beginning of each bracket. And then you'll figure it out which goes in. Emerson, what is the GCF of E? Yes. So again, this is a nice easy one because if you put your B squared there, it's just going to keep canceling. B squared over B squared, B squared over B squared, B squared over B squared. What you're left with is x squared minus 4, there's an x there, minus 45. Danny, what would you say the GCF of f is? Yes, it is 2x because x is common to each. You take out the x with the lowest power. And you would get 1x squared plus 1x minus 20. And then you factor that by inspection.